Hey guys, this is Woody back with another video, and I wanted to talk about configuring SRST on a CUBE router and configuring SRST in Call Manager. There are a couple caveats that I feel are important to talk about in this video, and to emphasize is one of those is licensing. It was one of the things that I got hung up on for a little bit, and I had to do some research. It's not very hard. I mean, the whole SRST process is not extremely difficult. There's lots of different options depending on your setup and your needs at the remote site. But honestly, it's not difficult. But there are a few different things, and in my opinion, half the battle is finding the right documentation that explains it in an easy fashion. So I'm going to do my best to explain some of those options, at least for what we have set up. I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but hopefully this will help somebody out. So right here we are on our Korea CUBE router, which has a PRI connected to it. Now I've done 2 videos in the past that explain the PRI/ISDN setup in Call Manager, and I'm sorry, on the CUBE, and then my second video, so there's the first video, and then my second video was talking about how to connect Call Manager and the CUBE together. And so if you need information on that, I recommend checking out those videos. But now on the same router in Korea, I need to set up SRST. And so I just wanted to explain some of the things that I found out. So the first hurdle that I came across was licensing. And so basically we have the CME-SRST license, which I'll show you right here. Show license. And if we do a question mark, we can see we have different options. Now if we do we can just do show license, that's fine, and it'll give us some options here. So we can see that IP base we have active right here, and then if I hit spacebar, we'll see at the very end we have this CME SRST license. So we just need to activate that, and that's easy enough. But for the command, it is license and right to use, and then if we hit question mark, we only have one option, which is move, and now it's asking for a word, so we're actually going to just put in the license, which we saw right here, which is CME SRST. So CME-SRST, and I have already activated this license, so we're going to see license is already in right to use state, but normally you'll see something else. Actually, I have another router right here. This is a new router that we have here at our HQ. So license right to use, we do move, and CME-SRST, and this is what you'll see. And it's going to say you may use this product feature on an evaluation basis without payment to Cisco for 60 days. Your use of the product included during the 60 days evaluation period is subject to the Cisco end or use license, yada yada yada. So basically this is an honor code. After 60 days, it will activate. So I pulled some on one of the Cisco docs. It says as of starting from release 15.4, which we're on 15.4.3, show version, so we are right here. 15.43 M1 is the version that we're currently on right now. And according to Cisco, let's see, what does it say here? Evaluation right to use licenses automatically become right to use licenses after the initial evaluation period. So basically it'll be permanent after 60 days, whether you purchase or not. But I do not recommend being dishonest, I recommend purchasing the license, which we have. We have purchased the CME-SRST license for this CUBE router, and they just mail you a piece of paper verifying, saying, yep, you have the license. So I've activated it on, I'm not going to activate it here. I'm just going to hit no. No. Accept. No. Okay, good. Okay, we'll just clear that up. Make it pretty. Anyway, basically, that's what you're going to do. You're going to hit yes once you have it, and it'll say active, and you're ready to go. So for the SRST, licensing is the first thing that needs to happen. You're not going to be able to enter into the fallback mode, I believe, without that. So licensing is the first thing. And I'm going to put all these links that I have, the information that I got from the Cisco documentation and elsewhere, in the description. So look for those if you want to read up on these things. Also, another thing I wanted to talk to you about is on these. This is a 4431 router, so if you were gonna, I don't want to explain that. That's a different thing, but I guess I can just kind of mention it real quick. So if you were gonna activate an entire technology package, show license. Let's see. I don't know if they do it in show version anymore. So, like this UCK9 technology package, right? This is we can see that we've purchased all these and we've made them permanent. And the way to do that is so you have licenses, which is the CME-SRST individual license, and then you have these technology packages, and you can see here some IP base and unified communications and so on and so forth. But to activate one of these packages, let's say you wanted to, if you didn't have the license, you would do license boot, and on this 2911, I'll do it on here too, just like a clear screen. All right, config T, license boot module, and if we hit question mark, we'll see that it's C2900. And then we do another question mark, and then it's going to say, and then we only have one option for technology package, and then question mark, and then we can pick a technology package to activate if we needed to. Now we see license boot module, but on the 4431s, and I think it's just the 4400s and the 4300 ISR routers, it's a little bit different. It is level, so it's license boot level, and then the package that you wanted to activate. So instead of the license boot module, whatever module, and then technology package, it's just license boot level. So I did want to mention that, depending on what kind of router you have, and if you were going to actually activate a technology package. But if you just wanted the SRST license, then obviously you would do it the way that I showed you in the beginning. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I just wanted to give you a heads up here. Okay. So now that we have the license activated, let's start configuring the CUBE router. Now I'll show you in the same video how to do it in Call Manager. There's like two things that you need to do. It's very simple, but this is where all the meat is here. So we are going to get into config T, and then we're going to do Call Manager, and I just hit tab there and fallback. And if we hit enter, we can see that we've entered the Call Manager fallback mode. And there's a couple things that we need to do first. And first is we need to set the IP source address, right? So this is the IP source address that the phones, and if you don't know what SRST is, or you're not completely 100% sure on what it does, I'm not going to explain all of SRST and what it does. Please, I highly recommend just Google it. There's mountains of documentation on explaining what SRST is. But we're going to set the IP source address, and basically that is going to tell the phones when the router loses communication with the central office that they need to register with this IP address, which is the IP address of the CUBE router, of the remote site. So IP source address, we are going to put, and this is just going to put mine in here, and we hit question mark, and we need to put port as well. Port, 2000. Okay, so we put the IP source address so the phones know that they need to register with the CUBE router and not call manager. Let's see. Also, if you want a secondary dial tone, which I highly recommend, because secondary dial tone, so when the agents pick up, I believe what happens is once it falls into SRST mode, the phones will not have a dial tone, and so in order to hear that dial tone, they'll have to push. If you set it up this way with a secondary dial tone, they will pick up the phone, hit 9, and then they'll hear the dial tone. Without just picking it up, they won't hear anything. I believe that's how it works. But we're going to do secondary dial tone when they press 9, and we can see there's nothing else there. And I think this is, we're going to set this anyways. Max conferences is 8 with a gain of -6. So if you want them to have be able to conference, I believe that sets the max number. Actually, let's see here. May explain maximum conferences to support, 1 to through 22. So we'll just, like I said, we did 8. We've already set that, so I'm not going to do it again. Another one is transfer system full consult. System, and then if we question mark, we can see the different options here. And we're going to do full consult because that's obviously the best option for when we're going to transfer, or for, and I'll show you one of the main reasons, at least for what our needs are, why we're going to use this. But let's see, full consult. I think I had that pulled up. Let's see if I can find it real quick on one of these tabs here. If I can't find it real quick, then I'll go. But I mean, it explains it right here. Perform SIP call transfers with consultation using second phone line if available. And we're going to talk about the dual phone line and things like that. But basically, this is something that you want to have. But we'll do full consult. Looks like I can't find it real quick, so I'm not going to worry about it. Not that big of a deal. If you guys have questions, I mean, just look it up. All right, sorry. Okay, so transfer system full consult. And I don't know what DSS is. Direct station select. Okay, but we don't need that. So. All right, so that's important. And then here's another one that's what we need. So at least the 2911, depending on your Cisco router, it can only handle so much or so many calls. And so depending on what you have, at least the 2911s, they can only handle 50 sessions at a time, SRST sessions, so 50 phones at a time. And so, I mean, which is fine. We only have like, I don't even think we have 20 users in Korea. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the max-ephones. Max-ephones. And we can do 1 through 58. And we're just going to obviously just set it to 50. I'm sorry. We're going to set it to 20. That's what I have. Because we don't even have 20 agents, so I'm going to set it to the max-ephones to 20. And then I also need to set the max. Let's see if we can. Yeah, max-dn. So directory numbers supported. So max-dn is or dn is directory numbers, and so we're going to say max-dn, and we're going to put 40 because I want each phone to be able to have 2 lines. And then you can see that if we hit a question mark here, we can do dual line, octo-line, or if we don't put anything, it'll just do single line. And we want dual line, like I said, because we want each phone to have a secondary directory number or line, so that the phone can transfer. If it doesn't have that dual line, if it's just a single line, I don't believe you can do any transfers or anything like that. So from Cisco documentation, if the initiating party for the conference call is a dual line directory number, the system selects another idle channel from the dual line directory number. If the selected channel has a call on hold, the conference operation will automatically select the hold channel and create the conference. So that's important. Now, you can also do octo-line. I don't think... I'm pretty sure we don't need that on ours. I mean, from what I've read, dual line will just be sufficient for our needs. But I mean, you can read up on octo-line and see if that's something that your situation may call for. Yeah, okay, so we're going to dual line, and I don't think... Yeah, we're not going to go into any of the preference or anything, so we just need dual line. And so obviously, because dual line, we set it double the amount of the max ephones. So ephones are 20. We set the max dn to 40. So because we can have those dual lines, each phone can have 2. All right, timeout, interdigit timeout. So if we do timeouts, and we want to go to interdigits or interdigit, and we can do 2 through 120 seconds. I'm just doing 6. You can do more. Obviously, you can do it to 2, but I just do the 6 because that's, I think, what the standard is, anyways. And if an interdigit timeout is when they make a call and they dial a number, if it will wait 6 seconds if it doesn't match anything in your dial peers. If it doesn't match a dial peer, or I'm sorry, not that it doesn't match a dial peer. What will happen is it will wait 6 seconds to make sure that all the digits are entered into the phone, and then it'll ring. And so, if it then before it might matches a dial peer, I believe. So, timeouts interdigit 6. We also need to set the time zone. We need to set the date format and time format. So if we do time, let's see, time zone, and if we hit question mark, we can see that it lists all these time zones right here. Now, you can see that it does minus 600. These are, I believe, minutes. Is that correct? Yeah. So 60 minus 60 is minus 1 hour from from the GMT standard time. So we are, or Korea is plus 540. I think it's 9. Is that 9 hours? And so we're just going to use Tokyo Standard Time, is basically the same time as Korea, Seoul. So we're just going to do 44. Date format. And we can see we have the day, month, and the different formats. So we're just going to select the DD. And also time format. And it gives us just the standard 12 hours, the 24-hour format. And I'm just going to use 12 format. Okay, so that's, I mean, for the easy part, I mean, for the standard stuff, at least for what we need. Now, there's more options, right? You can put, you can include hunt pilots, meaning if you already have a hunt pilot already on the router, in SRST mode, the hunt pilot will continue to work. But I mean, by all means, I'm not going to show that here. That's not what we need. We don't already have a hump pilot, so I didn't really implement that. So, but there's, like I said, there's plenty of documentation on that for that specific feature. But what I wanted to do, what we did need is a hunt pilot only when it's an SRST, right? And so I'm going to show you that here in just a little bit. But let's see. Voice. Let's see. So we can create dial. We created dial peers already. Since this is, you know, I mean, it should. If it's a cube router, it should already have dial peers on there. So I'm not going to go over that. Let's go over voice translation. Well, okay, I'll go over the hunt pilot section first, and then I'll talk about the voice translation profile. So what we need to put is transfer pattern dot t. Sorry, excuse me. So that if any call comes in, it will, from any number, right? It will transfer. I'll kind of explain what I'm talking about here. Another and part of this is we need aliases, right? And if you don't know what aliases are, is basically they take one number and they will port it or transfer it to another number. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of looking something up here so I can explain a little bit better. Yeah, I'll show you, and then I'll include some documentation. Aliases, and then so we have aliases, and then we need a tag, and they only support up to 50 aliases on one of these routers. So if you have more than 50 agents or 50 phones, then you're going to have to kind of choose which one you need. But obviously we're going to start with 1, and then we need a word, which is a sequence of digits. So we'll put in here a Korea router, or a Korea phone number, which is that. And then what we want to do is so when somebody calls in from this number, or they call this number, right? If this number is called, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to call. This is a call center number in Korea, right? So somebody's going to call this number. The service provider or the SIP provider is going to direct that call into our cube router, and our cube router is going to say, okay, this call came in, and normally it's going to look into call manager, and call manager is going to say, okay, here's what you need to do. So we're saying when this number is called, when this number comes into the router, then we want to transfer it. We want basically a hunt pilot, because we have call center agents in Korea, right? And so we want them to still receive calls if the central office is down. And so I have their extensions, right? So we'll just do extension 6208. And basically what it's going to say is if we have 1, then every call will go into this extension, right? But we want, like I said, we want a hunt pilot. But only when the router is in SRST mode. If it's not in SRST mode, we don't want a hunt pilot because we don't need it. So by doing this way, basically this will, if we have multiple, we do alias 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we can do the same number starting with 080808, 2, and then a different extension, right? And so we'll just list them, so on and so forth. But let's say this person doesn't answer, right? They're not in, they're not at their desk, or whatever. So what's going to happen? We want to call forwarding to this back to the same number. So let me kind of let me hit a question mark here so you can kind of see. So we want call forwarding busy and no answer target. So if the call comes in and it rings at this extension and they do not answer, within a certain amount of time, it will call that number again. It will call. We can have it call a different number, but we want it to go back into the queue. Basically, we'll just say that. But call forwarding to that number, and then if we hit question mark, timeout or ring no answer time duration. So if they don't, we'll do this is in seconds, and so it rings for 2 seconds, and then you have silence for 4 seconds. So this will ring 3 times, and so what? Why did that work? Oh, I'm sorry. Timeout. That's my bad. And then 3 to 6,000. Ring no answer time duration. We want 12. So we're going to do the same thing. So we can just actually copy this, because it's basically going to be the same stuff here. And except we just need to change this. The alias number, identification number, so we're going to change that to 2, and then we're going to change the extension to 210, and everything else stays the same. So I'm hoping this kind of is starting to make sense here. And we're going to do it again. Depending on how many agents or how many phones you have, this is basically what needs to happen. We're going to change the alias again to 3. And then the extension, we're going to change to 12. And so on and so forth. And so this is kind of what we do. Now, I've already written it out, and so I don't want to have to rewrite it, but so I'll just copy and paste it in here, but let's see. I'm starting with 4 here. Okay, perfect. So, so this is what happens. This is what will happen. This is basically a hunt pilot, only in SRST mode. And so I think this is pretty cool, and this is exactly what we need for our Korea office. Now, also, I want each agent has their own DID, right? And so I want it to be able to, so that when people, a family member, a customer, or whatever, is calling from the outside into that office, they're trying to reach a specific agent, I still want them to those calls to go through, because at this point, only calls that are going to the 0808 number will go through, right? And then it'll be directed in this hunt pilot system. And so what we want here is, again, we're going to continue to use the aliases. Alias, and I'm just going to do 12. And then, so what happens is with the DIDs, the service provider, they send the last 4 digits of the number of that DID into our PRI. And so our queue router only gets the last 4 digits. So, for example, 2512 is what the cube router will get. And so I need to translate this. Unfortunately, I can't use this 2512 is technically not their extension, right? It's translated in Call Manager from 2512, and this particular person, it's transferred, or it's translated into 6208, right? So they're a DID. It's a full Korea number. It starts with 02, yada yada yada, and then the last 4 digits are 2512. But in Call Manager, as soon as that number comes in, it sends the cube sends the information off to Call Manager. Call Manager looks at its translation patterns and says, oh yeah, 2512 needs to be translated to 6208, right? And so let's see here. We just need to do 6208, and I believe that's pretty much it. We can do a call forwarding busy no answer if we wanted to, but I choose not to, because if somebody, usually this is the way that we have it, if somebody's calling that particular DID, it's to reach that specific person, and so I don't really feel the need to have it transferred to another number, right? Because it's most likely a family member or another agent or somebody else that has to do with work, another employee maybe that's going to be reaching that person, and so so I only have the hunt pilot for the call center number, so that customers, they call that number, and then obviously, like I've explained, it'll do a hunt pilot scenario and kind of go down through the extensions, and then somebody obviously will answer. And so I think I can just do that, yep, and then start over. So just hit the up arrow, then we go to 13, except this time it's going to be 2517. It's going to go to 6210, and so on and so forth, and we just continue to do this, but you don't need to see that, me putting in all these things, but yeah, that's and so you can continue to, you can do different scenarios with that setup. Now, what if you had a DID, like a full DID, right? And you use the last 4 digits of that DID as an extension. How would you can put the full DID in, which is fine. You can also have a voice translation rule to strip the last 4 and put it in there, so that when that number's called, it strips the last 4. And then only apply it to this SRST configuration. Let's see if I can exit this. Exit. So we're going to do voice translation rule. Now I've already have a couple in here. I'm going to use 3. And this is what I have put. I've already done this, and I'll kind of explain what this means. So here, let's do this. So if we do question mark, it gives us options. We want the last one where it says rule, and translation rule 1 tag, or I'm sorry, translation rule tag, and we're going to put it as 1. And then here, this is where obviously we're doing matching pattern, but this is where all the fun stuff happens. So if you're not familiar with translation rules, again, I recommend, and I'll put another description, or in the description I'll put another link of some helpful places where I found out how to do translation patterns. Translation rules. But basically, if we did that, what this is saying is that any number that comes in starting with 0, 2, so this little bracket right here, this is saying exclude this character, this little caret. But that caret also indicates that a starting of. So we're saying any number that starts with 0203460. Okay. I'm sorry. This bracket. This bracket indicates the beginning, right? So the beginning of the translation portion, and then this is the caret that says starting with. So this number, any number starting with 0203460, and then this backslash right here says to ignore this parentheses, and then dot means any character, 0 through 9, and then this star means any number of repeating times. So it could go on forever technically, but obviously we know this is only 4 digits, but it's just easier to put a star. And this backslash means ignore that parentheses, and then this / is the end of that section. So any number starting with 0203460, it's going to say look for that number, match that pattern, and then I've put a dot and a star with these parentheses, and so this is kind of my set, my what's the word? I'm looking for. We'll just say this is my set, and then this I would say the forward slash is the beginning of, and the backward slash 1 means anything that was after the 0. So this is 0 right here, right? So we're looking any digits that were dialed after the 0, place in where the backslash 1 is. So you're just take this number that starts with 0203 and replace that with just the last digits that were dialed after the 0. This 0 right here, right? And so basically it can take a full day ID, grab the digits that you need, like let's say the last 4 of the extension or whatever, and can be placed and it will use only those. The service provider actually does this automatically because it only sends the last 4. I put this rule in here just for fun, for practice, and for just in case something ever changes. So let's say the service provider starts sending all the digits, it won't mess anything up from the way I have it. All right, we can hit enter, and there you go. So that's the translation rule that we've had. Now we're going to do. We need to make a profile, so we're going to exit this and do a translation profile. And again, we can name it anything, and so I just name it SRST because I use it. This is specifically for the SRST mode, and I get into that, and so we're going to specify numbers that should be translated. So translate, and we're doing calling. So the calling, whatever, for the calling number, calling 3. And I'm putting 3 because I put the voice translation rule 3. So I think if we do a question mark here, translation rule tag, yeah, which we set at 3 before. And so we set the translation profile. And then what we need to do is we need to go back to the SRST mode. Let's see, end config t, and we need to do. So we're back in the SRST mode. Translation. Oopsie. Translation profile. And is this for incoming calls or is this for outgoing calls? The outgoing leg. So we want incoming. And then we hit question mark, and it's what's the profile name, and we named it SRST. And so we're saying that for this when it goes into when it goes into SRST mode, use this translation profile for incoming calls. And so that's basically what we've done. Now, I've kind of just done like a quick review on translation rules and profiles, and I apologize if you don't know anything about those. Again, I will leave a description. They're actually pretty cool. There's a lot of fun things that you can do in learning those about translation rules and patterns and profiles and stuff. So highly recommend if you have some extra time to look into that, but it's fun. Okay, so now we need to set up the SRST in Call Manager, and that's again very, very easy. There's 2 places that we need to go. So I'm just going to log in here to our Call Manager. So we need to go to System SRST. And here we can just add. We would add new if you didn't already have it. But you would put the name. Let's do KR-SRST. You would put the port, IP address, SIP IP address, and SIP port. So I've actually already done this. So I'm just going to hit find and then Korea SRST. And you can see I just IP and the SIP network IP address are the same thing. And then SIP port, obviously 5060. We're not doing SRST secure, so not having to worry about it. You hit save, and then that part's done. And then you go to device pool. You find your device pool for those phones, and we have a device pool right here for Korea. And then in the SRST reference, you pick your reference, the SRST reference that you just made, and which is Korea SRST. And I don't think. Let me see one quick question. Yeah, this is just the CUBE. This is the device profile for the CUBE. I didn't think we had to put SRST reference there, and we don't. So it's just for the phone device pool for the phones. So obviously you can see that we have Japan and we have Malaysia. In Japan we have a Japan SRST. We have reference right there. So as far as call manager goes, it's easy, no big deal. So anyway, I hope this has been informative for you guys. And if you have any questions, please leave comments. Please leave me comments, or have questions. I will get back to those questions as soon as I can. If I have told you lies and spilled misinformation all over the place, please again let me know. But I believe that this hopefully will be informative for some of you, and that it'll make it a little bit easier on your journey to becoming a voice master in Cisco. Again, like I said, finding this information where it actually explains it in a clear, concise manner is half the battle. So anyway, let's see if there's anything else I need to explain. Yes, one more thing. There's this really cool way of testing. So basically, if you wanted to test SRST at the remote site, basically what you'd have to do is you'd have to go to the unified serviceability, and you would have to turn off the call manager service, and then they would fall back. But if you're in a live environment like me, you can't do that. I mean, it's just, unless it was like a, off hours, right, type of thing. And I really don't want to have to do that on my off hours. But this, there's a person that has had a great idea, and I found this at thevoiceman.wordpress.com, and I'm just going to show you that that right here. For Cisco IP phones into SRST mode. Let me get rid of this. And so I've actually been looking at some of this guy's stuff, and he has some really cool blog posts. I've really enjoyed some of his stuff. Thevoiceman.wordpress.com. So I highly recommend go ahead and check that out. He has some great posts there. But basically, you just, on the CUBE router, you just do an access list, and you block the TCP, the SIP, skinny. If you're using secure, you block those ports as well. But you block the SIP and skinny TCP and UDP ports. Super awesome idea. So that's not going to mess up your connection. Like this, like my Korean route, our router in Korea, I don't have physical access to, right? So it's not going to mess with my SSH session. And so I just thought this was ingenious. I haven't actually tried it yet, but I plan on doing so here pretty soon. But there's another idea if you can't turn off the call manager service. And this actually, I think, I don't know, turning off the call manager service is easy, but like I said, if you're in a live environment, it's just not possible. So anyway, hope this has helped you guys, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, bye.